Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
And today, we're here on a very somber occasion. As you should all know by now, if you are watching this as it released, Pope Francis has passed on to his eternal reward.
I mean, if you're watching this afterwards, it's not
He's still passed on, but it's less. It's even more likely that you know about this then.
So, just cards on the table. We're filming this the day that his funeral was held. So, we're probably still, by the time you see this, we're probably still in the 9 days of mourning. And we just thought, because we are, after all, the Popish Plot, and, being in year 8, the entirety of our show has taken place under the pontificate of Francis. We just thought that we should do some reflection upon our experience of him as the Pope. We don't have a set plan. We don't have a script. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. It is a little bit of a mixed bag, right? From my perspective, right? Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of a mixed bag in that he was the first Pope to really address a lot of people on a level more that was more their level kind of a thing. At the same time, he was also the Pope most known for saying things off the cuff when perhaps a little bit more prudence might have been due.
I can't disagree with any of that.
I mean, we joked that there should be a new rule that the people in the airplane can't ask the Pope questions, but he just went back there and it was like, "Hey, guys."
Well, there's a thing. He didn't like rules. He just wanted to do what he was going to do.
I like that about him, to be honest. I mean, I like the fact that he looked at it and said, "You know what?"
Said, "You know what?"
I like that about him. I don't always like what it produced.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard it described as he shot from the hip. But part of it is, it's been 20 years, almost exactly 20 years, since a sitting pope has died. Obviously, we all remember the death of Pope Benedict. It was just over 2 years ago. But
he had been out of the limelight in his essence.
Yeah, he'd been out of the office for almost 10 years by the time he passed, so his death was very muted. And in 2005, when Pope John Paul died, I was a purely nominal Christian. Like, I know it was a big deal. I know it was all over. I didn't know what Catholic media was then. It was all over the secular media, but it was just one story among others. It's like, yes, here's the death of the Pope, and obviously I knew who the Pope was, but I'd never read anything he'd written. I wasn't a particularly faithful Catholic at that point. I'd go to Mass, I'd hear his name a lot, but so it's like, here's his death. Oh, and then the latest news from the Iraq War, because that was a big deal in 2005.
Much like how we discussed in the past, having, essentially the entire time we knew it was just John Paul II for, so long.
Yeah.
He was the Pope when I was born. You guys were babies,
No, he was Pope when I was born.
Okay.
Nate's the only one of us here who's lived through 5. Who Francis was his 5th Pope. For you and me both, it's our 3rd.
It's one of those things that I'm now imagining. John Paul I lasted very, very short.
You were
you're right.
You were born under Paul VI. Yeah. Just a little while, and then the short pontificate of
the John Paul I.
John Paul I, and then
But anyway,
by the time you were 1 year old, you were under your 3rd Pope.
Yeah.
Yes, but kids these days, maybe they'll have the idea that if you're a Pope, you have to go and die during Easter time because Francis died Easter Monday. John Paul, they were arguing back and forth whether it was the Saturday or if it was right at, so it was Divine Mercy Sunday.
It was, it was right around Divine Mercy Sunday. Yeah, because it was exactly. A week after.
Yeah, so it was Easter week.
Yeah. It's going to be the new things. The next Pope lives, for hopefully a length of time that's rather long. And the kids are like, wait, the Pope's allowed to die when it's not Easter?
Well, just every Easter you're going to get a little nervous. Like, we're full of Easter joy, but we're worried about the Pope. This is when they die.
It'd be like, Christmas in London in Doctor Who world. The aliens always attack at Christmas. Let's go out to the country.
No, but even
Easter dress, morning dress.
I mean, I didn't look up when Easter was in 2013, but Benedict resigned on February 28th, which is almost certainly in Lent. Mm-hmm. And then Francis became Pope on April 13th. Which is,
wow, that was a long period.
Well, because, he they wanted to take an appropriate amount of time before.
Yeah.
They wanted to treat it kind of like a death. Not just, I resign and now, boom, conclave.
Even though it is the modern era and everyone could go and, jump on jets and get there quickly, they still have the built-in, you've got to give them a length of time to get here.
Well, if you're coming from Australia, if you're coming from China, it still takes a bit to get to Italy.
Yeah. You don't want to be jet lag having traveled for a
traveling
day and a half.
Traveling halfway around the world does actually take, like traveling halfway around the world should feel.
Especially when most cardinals are aged. Apparently there's one cardinal from one of the Eastern churches who's only in his 40s, but there's nobody else who's below 50. And there's a lot of guys. There's almost as many above 80. So they're not cardinal electors, but we'll talk about that when we do our conclave episode, as there are cardinal electors.
Yes, but...
so you're saying I still got a chance. You do. Awesome.
Well, again, we'll talk about that in conclave.
But anyway.
So I had my personal conversion in Lent of 2012. So then I was a serious Catholic, still not knowing anything about anything, for about a year under Pope Benedict. So most of my time as a committed Christian has been under, Pope Francis. I had never read a papal document before Pope Francis. And because I don't read as quickly as I should or nearly as often as I should, to Jess's lament, we've got something we want to film that keeps getting pushed back because I haven't finished the book.
It was going to be filmed and then out on the same week as Final Four Hell, which will make sense when you know what it is.
Super appropriate.
I know how to get him to read it.
Yeah.
I will start reading your copy.
Because if
we can't have Nate having read a book. That's against the rules. But I haven't read everything Francis wrote, but when he first became Pope, I was super excited to read Evangelii Gaudium. And his apostolic exhortation on joy. Like the first encyclical I ever read was Lumen Fide. Now, later I learned, why does this read so different from all of his other documents? It's a collab with Benedict. It's also why it's shorter.
I mean, but there is a certain amount of stuff where people are like, oh, he talks completely different than the last popes. But if you play a game of, which pope said this?
Yeah.
You're going to possibly guess wrong unless you're playing a game who said this. So you're like, this one's about caring for the earth. You want me to say Francis?
Oh, no.
So I'm going to say Benedict.
No, that is a great game to draw quotes where you think people are going to pick, Francis, but then it's totally Benedict. Absolutely. No, but here's Laudato Si.
Which I love the fact that every single one, you translate it based off of the first couple words in it. Mm-hmm. This one we're all we're just going to call it by its Latin.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's the Italian.
Maybe Italian.
Same with Fratelli Tutti. Because you're like, I don't know Latin well enough to write in it, so I'm going to write it in Italian. No, but Laudato Si, Article 246. Whereas Paul VI, Humanae Vitae, has 31 articles. Mm-hmm. So you could tell Francis is writing because they're long.
Yes.
The man did not have like me, the man did not have an economy of language.
I feel like this has to do with being a Jesuit,
Let's talk around the problem for a while. So, Francis was unique in many ways in that he's the first real social media pope. Mm-hmm. There was a papal Twitter under Benedict, but not used very much. There wasn't a lot of social media under John Paul. He was a star of the old media. He'd been an actor, he'd written plays, so the TV, the camera loved Pope John Paul.
Yes, and if you get that right thing, he will respond back with, maybe I love you more, or whatever that they made a gif out of, and then put it in a song.
Yeah. But Francis was the first pope where, social media is a huge thing, and even overtaking old media. So all of a sudden, everybody is using these platforms and feels that they need to register an opinion on what the Pope is doing. And we're not just, reading his documents, but, every airplane press conference he gives, what's your take? And obviously, we run a YouTube channel. We have a YouTube show. We are not against giving our opinion.
No.
And we're not against you giving your opinion. We'd love it for you to comment. We'd love for you guys to comment a lot more than you do. But
not in one comment.
And it's just this weird compulsion that people feel that they need to put out their take on such and such. Whereas, my guy, the Pope doesn't need your opinion. He's not a president. He's not a pop star. He's the Pope. And whether you like him or don't like him, he's still the Pope. Yes. So, to Nate's original point, yes, there were many, 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 many instances where I was very frustrated with the Pope's style of doing something.
Not so much what he said, but how he said it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just the inconsistency of, he was elected to be a financial reformer, and, he started off so well.
I mean, if you give all your money to the poor, you have no finances, problem solved.
Yeah, but that's not what they did. It's the investing in, London real estate and giving it all to gangsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, but he appoints Cardinal Pell, and establishes the Secretariat of the Economy, and they're rocking and rolling, and they're starting to look at things, and people in the Curia start complaining that they're too Anglo-Saxon because they believe in, bookkeeping, or what is it? What do you call it, Nate? Double entry bookkeeping?
Yes.
Yeah, because they believe in crazy things like double entry bookkeeping.
Which is the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Opposed to the way the Italians do things, which God love them, which is, there are literal sacks of cash sitting in the hallway. Where'd they come from? It showed up. Where'd it go into?
Did anybody write it down? Maybe.
I mean...
It's in the hallway. We know where it is.
Did anybody write down that you received that?
What are you, a cop? 5 money bags.
What are you, a cop?
Yes. The hallway money is in case something interesting falls off the back of a truck.
Finding gold bars in just people's desks.
Where'd this money come from? What are you, a cop?
But the Vatican is... COVID took a big hit because the Vatican makes a lot of its operating capital off of the museums. Mm-hmm. So they were shut down for a couple of years. Okay. But he initiated these reforms, needed financial reforms, and then a couple years later, lets his buddy Angelo Besciu, undercut everything, and then it all just goes away. The people who are in charge of auditing get fired. It's a mess. It's this is a point made by the guys on the Pillar. He was much better at starting than he was at finishing. Which, that's a character flaw I have, and which I find very frustrating in others.
I mean, also the museums being shut down was negative on income because you never know when someone's going to look and say, hey, that piece of that chair looks loose, and they open it up and find the original Magna Carta or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, again, they're not very good at keeping track of records. In this case, because they've had it since insert year of Magna Carta here.
1215. 1215 and running me, doo-da, doo-da.
And they kind of forgot about it. When you're the person who's in charge of telling the new pope the important things, this is way on the bottom of the list.
If your accounting system is based on gold bars in people's desks and bags of cash in the hallway, you lose track of things. Where did you put it? I put it somewhere clever so that I wouldn't lose it. Do you remember where it is? No.
Next question. Does the Vatican have cookie jars?
Where did you put it? Somewhere safe.
Oh, we're never getting it back.
Where is it now? I don't know.
I can't tell you
how can you tell me it's safe? If I don't know where it is.
You don't know where it is either. I can't tell you how many times I've outsmarted myself. Okay, I'll put this somewhere unusual, that way I'll remember it. No, I remember I left it somewhere unusual.
Yep.
That's the way human memory works. You remember you went upstairs for something, you don't remember what you went upstairs for. That's the way it is. But it drives me absolutely nutty. The way that people refused to take Pope Francis at his word, or to read his words, and instead just based their reactions to him off whatever was said by their particular flavor of the evil outrage media machine.
I especially hated the outrage when someone, half misquoted him for the various times that he told some little child that, God is merciful versus, your atheist dad's in hell. Like, if a pope says that, does that make it official binding for starters?
No, not unless he says. Not unless he does the whole I declare and decree.
It is. At this point in time, it's malicious how many people misunderstand papal infallibility. They can't be that dumb. They're doing it on purpose. Oh, everything he says. No.
I'm just saying, when you declare someone a saint, it's considered, official without doing the I officially declare from the chair.
Well,
There's some, asterisk of, how infallible it is, but we generally all agree that they didn't.
But there's still a process.
Still.
It's not every word that comes out of his mouth is magisterial.
But still, it's one of those ones where it's like, so the correct answer, according to you, is to tell a small child horrible things.
Or when people were talking about their pets, and he's like, well, maybe.
It's like he named himself after the person who was surrounded by animals in every single piece of art you've seen about him.
He's being pastoral because that's what... You do not give a grieving person a theology lesson. Doing so makes you an evil prick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been times when, as the grieving person, I wanted to give the other person a theology lesson, but that's just because their theology was so bad that it was,
No, and when you're the grieving person, you're totally allowed to do that. Grieving people get to do what they want because they're grieving. So they get a lot of leeway to do what they want. If it give a theology lecture, sure. Good news, yours will be better than a lot of people's. Because some people, it's like, wow, okay, wow. But... I made the mistake, my fault, of going on social media on Monday when the news was brand new, and I shouldn't have been. I should have been shocked, but I was shocked by the number of people who decided to say, "Listen, I just got to be honest. Listen, I just don't want to I don't want to, cherry coat things. I'm just speaking the truth here." And then, blah blah blah, bad thing about the Pope. And you follow the profile, and so many of them just describing themselves as super, ultra, super duper MAGA. The most MAGA of all. The most MAGA possible. And they're all denouncing the Pope for his supposed support for the platform of the American Democratic Party, having no idea what Catholic teaching is, how to apply it, and I'm sorry that Pastor Bob has politicized your little non-denom church, but the Catholic Church does not fit into anyone's political categories. We're not left or right, we follow Jesus. Sometimes we agree with one side, sometimes we agree with the other. We agree with neither in the totality of things. And just because the church disagrees with your side doesn't make the church evil. Totally unreasonably angry about that on Monday.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Totally.
I'm on different ones. So
Yeah.
we had less of that.
Yeah.
We had more of the edgelord atheists who are just denouncing the church as a whole that I read.
Yeah.
And then the people who suggested that this was from some level of joking to honest to goodness, a hit by, a certain American politician that recently saw him.
No, the funniest thing I saw was someone showing a picture of the vice president meeting with the Pope the day before he died, and then saying, yeah, now all world leaders are afraid to meet with him.
I mean, he went
That's
to
funny.
India and there was a horrible thing.
That's legit funny. Yeah, but Modi was fine. The point was the personal proximity. Modi was fine, unfortunately.
I mean, the clip was, I'm going to pray for you to have a long life, and then he immediately drops dead.
Well, apparently his prayers are not very efficacious. So, on some level, You can always tell the success of one of God's servants by the level of worldly opposition they get. And also by the level of worldly praise they get.
Also, given the number of people who both like him, who either like him, really like him, don't like him, or really don't like him, one thing that you can definitely say about Pope Francis is that he touched the lives of a great many people.
Amen. Well, and there are times when, for good or for ill, we just need to take the compliment. The whole world is interested in the death of a pope and the election of a new pope.
Yeah.
So there is deep down, even of people who are very opposed to us, specifically, to Christianity as a whole, there's deep down a recognition that, no, this is special, and this is right.
Also, it's one of the few occasions where people are looking for smoke from inside a building.
Yeah. Yeah.
The rest of the time, no, you don't want smoke coming out.
You always want smoke coming out of a chimney. That's what they're for. So, we will continue to pray individually for the repose of the soul of Pope Francis. It is not wrong to have disagreements with the Pope. It's not praiseworthy to uncritically accept everything he ever said. For instance, in the Midwest, we need air conditioning. When we don't have air conditioning, old people die in the summer. So we gotta consider that. But comment below with your recollections of Pope Francis. How he affected your life. Give this episode a like, subscribe to our channel to be notified the next time we upload a plot. And, until next time.
Remember to live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love. And pray for the repose of the Pope's soul.